All right, so I'm going to finish up 8. I think it was not clearly explained previously. So let's talk about properties of molecules and compounds. So compounds are when elements combine in fixed proportions. So we have water, and that's H2O. Water is always H2O, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. On the other hand, we have H2O2, and that's hydrogen peroxide. So this brings us to the law of constant composition. So all samples of a given compound have the same proportions of their constituent elements. So all samples of a given compound have the same proportions of their constituent elements. What does that mean? That means that water is always going to be 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, and that hydrogen peroxide is always going to be 2 hydrogens and 2 oxygens. Okay, now we're going to try to understand the meaning of chemical formulas. So a chemical formula indicates the elements present in the compound and the relative number of each. Okay, so let's look at H2S, and we're going to learn how to name these compounds later on. H2S is hydrogen sulfide, just to give you a little sneak preview, and it has 2 hydrogens and 1 sulfur. And this bad boy here, which is made up of your polyatomic ions, which hopefully you have memorized so well that you can recite them backwards, forwards, up, down, you name it in a different language. You know your polyatomic ions. So this is ammonium phosphate. Okay, ammonium phosphate has 3 nitrogens, 12 hydrogens, 1 phosphorus, and 4 oxygens. Okay, now let's talk about the order of listing nonmetal elements in a formula. So this is when you have like nonmetal to nonmetal. There's an order, and it goes based on electronegativity. So it goes from least electronegative to most electronegative. And electronegativity has to do with how well an atom attracts electrons to itself, how well it hogs the electrons. Okay, so it goes from carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen, hydrogen, sulfur, iodine, bromine, chlorine, oxygen, fluorine. So the guys on the left would be listed first. The guys on the right would be listed last. Okay, so it goes in this order. So let's say you have a compound made up of phosphorus and hydrogen. This would be pH3. I don't expect you to know the formula per se, but just to know the order of listing the elements. All right, H2O. H would be written first, and oxygen. Compound between fluorine and hydrogen. Hydrogen would be written first, HF. And then a compound made up of carbon and 4 hydrogens would be CH4. Okay, so on the next page, we have a question. Um, which formula represents the greatest total number of atoms? And this is a good question because it really requires you to have a firm understanding of what these formula mean. And as you go into higher level chemistry, utilizing the formula is very important. So this compound, aluminum acetate, is made up of 1 aluminum, 2 times 3, 6 hydrogens, 6 carbons, 3 times 3, 9 hydrogens, and 2 times 3, 6 oxygens. So we've got 1 plus 6 plus 9 plus 6, and that gives you 22. Now here, it's 2 plus 6 plus 7 times 3, 21. So that's going to give you 29 total atoms. C, you have 1 plus 4 plus 4 plus 16, 25. And then 3 plus 4 plus 16, 23. And then the last one, ammonium phosphate, 3 plus 12 plus 1 plus 4, 20. So the greatest total number of atoms is represented in B, aluminum dichromate. All right, so this brings us to empirical formula and molecular formula. The empirical formula is the simplest whole number ratio of elements in a compound. Okay, so let's say we're talking about H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide. Okay, the empirical formula for hydrogen peroxide is just going to be, it's the simplest formula, so it's just going to be HO. The molecular formula is the actual number of elements in a compound. So molecular would be H2O2. Okay, and so now hopefully 8 and a little bit of 9 has been covered, and that makes more sense.